Today is December 15th, 2015. Actually, it's an entirely different month. It's January 15th, 2015. And the last video clips that I made, I was trying to explain some of the different dynamics and things, government strategies, I suppose you could call it, that the U.S. was using for premeditating repeated serial rape of me, and mostly using employees. I am sure that there had to have been some individuals involved who are not employees technically, but in some way they were working with the government, because what was happening to me, by and large, so to speak, was there is no denying that it was government. When almost every single individual is a government kid or is a government parent or employee for a government agency, and when some of the abuse, I would say even up to 50% of it, was occurring in federal buildings and government buildings and even local offices, like cop offices, that kind of thing. When that much of the abuse was occurring in settings that were clearly governmental, including prisons and hospitals and that kind of military bases, all kinds of things. It's pretty clear that, at least to me, that most of it has to do with the government. However, the government's use of rape and torture was then enabling a lot of people who were not part of the government to feel very confident that they could also do the same thing and there would be no problem. So the U.S., I don't think that the United States was ever cared really who was involved. However, in my case, when I was raped multiple times, like repeatedly over and over, there could have been several different individuals. However, when I was then older and they tried testing out the same kinds of rape schemes against me, they used, I was really surrounded by government people. And the people who got to me, who were able to even get close to me, were pretty much able to get close to me because there were other government workers making sure no one else could get close to me. So, wherever I went, wherever I worked, whatever I did, was being monitored and by the government. So I think that obviously they had a high motive to circle the wagon, so to speak, and make sure that there was no way that I could get outside of their ring. So, anyway, that is again just talking about the government side of things. When Robin Bechtold raped me the first time in high school, I said there was an assassination attempt that followed. And that's true, because I think they were always on edge. They always knew that at some point I could remember or place different people and recognize, my past, think about their families and them, and they could be in a lot of trouble. What were they going to do when all of a sudden I started talking about the things they'd done to me? And especially for them to have waited for some time before raping me again, and then using Robin to specifically use government tactics in very specific ways to rape me. I think that made them slightly edgy, a few of them, because they knew that it was a reintroduction into everything that they had worked on when I was younger. So it had more of a risk attached to it, because I'm quite sure that someone who then tries to do something like that again is then worried that it's going to trigger other memories that would surface for me as to everything that they've done to me in the past. And because, and it didn't initially. So I was pretty oblivious. I mean, I definitely knew that what had happened was wrong. And felt disgusted. But I didn't want to think about it because my philosophy and my values were that I wanted to be married one day, and I didn't want to have sex until I was married. And those were my own values, and it was based on my beliefs. And so, having a preteen or teen girl then try to explain what being raped and having it made to look like it was consensual, and to feel that she had participated in a consensual way when I didn't, is really horrifying for any girl who's young or boy. I mean, this is why I think a lot of sex abuse victims don't come forward until they're older, because of the embarrassment and shame, and you don't want to start talking about all these things that happened to you because it sounds indignified, and you know that some people are just really getting off on it. And, not to mention the whole concept of quote-unquote damaged goods, and how that can affect a person even today. So I didn't want to talk to people about it. And the government relies on that. They know how people are, and how they're going to feel when they're older, and when they're a teen especially. And they pretty much can count on the silence of people who are victims for a long time. And in my case, for a very long time, I think actually this whole idea of raising the limit for reporting sex abuse when someone has been sexually abused as a kid. So, for example, I think there's like a statute of limitations where it's upon discovery when you're an older adult that you can report something that occurred to you when you were a child. And the reasoning behind it is that when you're a child, you don't really feel like reporting it, or maybe even as a teen, or maybe you forget about it. And then when you're an adult, you're supposed to be responsible. Well, I think that's really, really is sublimating the entire act of rape and of a child, and the kinds of pressures and psychological trauma that go into it. I do not think that most adults even think about it, or want to think about it, or bring it up even when they're adults. Because I certainly didn't. I spent very large portions of my time not ever thinking about it, or recognizing it, or reflecting on anything like that. It was as if nothing had ever happened to me. So I really don't think, I think after the age of about 30, it starts sinking in a little bit more, maybe. But somewhere between 35, I think. Somewhere around the age of 35, when you're past caring so much about the whole dating and getting married one day, and what everybody thinks about me, and peer pressure and career pressure and that kind of thing. When you get to be just a little bit older and have more experience, and start getting sick of putting up with things, which is probably approximately the same time that some people get divorced. And I'm not saying that that's good or great for them or for anyone, but I think there are a lot of divorces that happen when people are in their 30s and sometimes 40s. And I think people just around that age frame, people start caring a little bit more about themselves and accepting things that they want for their lives, and being able to feel a little stronger about rejecting ideas and peer pressures that are pushed on them. I'm not saying it's the end of it all, but I think that, especially when it gets to things like rape and talking about really horrible things like that, I think that there are certain times in a person's life where it's slightly easier to discuss it or try to discuss it than at other times. And being a teenager and even a college-age student and a young adult are not times that it's easy to talk about, or even in your mid-20s or early 30s. It's just, it's just not, you're very peer conscious. You're trying to make it in the career world and social settings. And so it's not going to be easy. And it's something that a lot of times people don't even think about because they're so busy trying to work on things. College, getting ahead, working hard, having a family, maybe just being single and figuring out what activities you really want to be involved in. So anyway, I think that the statute of limitations should be up much, much higher than it is and allow for much more time, because people have memories that surface and then have them repressed or are threatened, including with death threats. And there are a lot of factors that come up with trying to report something and then having a group of people deliberately attempt to thwart that reporting attempt. Having records disappear, pulling records out of the charts, refusing to make a case report out of something that's reported, all kinds of things. So it's not something that someone just typically tries to do one time and they hope that you give up. That's what they want. Is with everything that they try, they hope that eventually you'll give up, and as long as they can make it in the meantime and start saving up their own money, working on their own little nest eggs and hiding things to protect themselves and their own security, as long as they feel that they got ahead enough, by the time you're a lot older, they don't really care as much. Then they start blaming things on you like, oh, she's getting old. She's senile now. It goes from mentally ill to senile or dementia, I'm sure. So anyway, this next clip, I have stated I'm not sure that I want to talk about the assassination attempt that happened right after this first rape of me again when I was a teen, or probably the other rapes. And I think I'm just going to go to the other rapes, because the other rapes cover all of the different strategies that were used against me. And then I can go back and maybe cover some of the different assassination attempts when those were slipped in as well. So that's what I'm planning to do. This is the first video for today.